Let's bring in News Nation political contributor and former chair of D.C. Democratic Party ACE, Scott Bolden, and Republican strategist and political analyst Alex Zdan. Gentlemen, good morning. A lot to get to. Scott, let me start with you. Overnight, you heard me talking about it with Jesse, a judge putting a pause on Trump's plan to gut the USAID's workforce. Earlier this week, a federal judge also pausing Trump's government worker buyout plan. Your thoughts on whether Trump will be able to carry out these reductions? Is this a speed bump? Is it a roadblock? What do you think?
Well, it could be both in this regard. Irreparable harm is one of the standards that the moving party has to make. Also, likelihood of success on its merits. So when you get a federal judge to put an emergency hold on what the government is trying to do, it's pretty hard to turn that over. You'll have a TRO, restraining order, then you have a preliminary injunction, and then a permanent injunction if you can get there, and there'll be a trial. But the bottom line is this: these Republican judges, appointed by Trump, some of them, are really uncomfortable with the government's ability to slash and burn. Federal employment law is really difficult, it's complicated, and that's why you have this slew of lawsuits, not because no one wants the government to reduce its size and be more efficient. It's how it's being done. This is not a tech company. This is a public organization, a massive public organization, and there are processes and procedures, and then there's a lack of trust factor, even at the federal court level, if you ask me, based on what I've read. I have government employees calling me, should I take the buyout, should I not? I'm going to retire in 30 days anyway. And so it gets really, really complicated for their choices. Can the federal government keep their word if they do take the buyout? And there's a real question about that, not only in the courts, but in the political minds of all Americans.
I'm glad you mentioned that at least one of the judges was appointed by President Trump himself. Alex, your take.
Well, first of all, I think that when we talk about Republican and Democratic judges, that's incredibly detrimental to our faith in the legal system. We have judges. They're appointed by different presidents of both parties, and they rule on these cases, we hope, based on the merits. I'm not here to attack judges. I'm here to defend Elon Musk and what he's doing. He's moving fast and breaking things. Will there be resistance from the federal bureaucracy? Of course. We knew this was going to happen. I don't view this as a strong setback at all. I view this as an evidence that when you are causing pain to the bloated mass, the blob of government, it is going to cry out. I, for one, would love 8 months of pay to do nothing, like these buyouts that have been generously extended. And I hope that more individuals in the federal government take the government up on this potential buyout for them, because I think it's a good deal.
Alex, I do want to talk about Elon Musk, since you brought him up. A busy week with Elon Musk leading the charge on slashing government spending. Some are calling Musk the bad cop to Trump's good cop. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
I think that Democrats have found their new villain, Hannah. I think that they got tired of attacking President Trump for 10 years after realizing that it didn't work. He became president again. He was elected by a plurality of the American people. So now they've turned their fire on Elon Musk. Have at it, Democrats. I love to see Democrats engaging in stunts, especially in front of that USAID building that none of them had probably ever gone into before this past week, crying about not being able to get through a locked door. Come on, let's get to work. Let's trim the fat in the federal government. Let's work together and do that.
Let's talk poll numbers when it comes to Elon Musk. Scott, we know Musk's popularity among voters has dropped. I want to ask your thoughts on his role within the Trump administration currently.
Well, it's unclear what his role is other than to slash and burn, that's for sure. And by the way, it's not Democrats complaining about this. My dad was a sitting state court judge. I agree with my colleague that judges rule on the facts and the law, but even judges are saying, stop the madness here. We're going to have an orderly process. And by the way, the real wrinkle in the Republican argument on this talking point is, why would you pay a number of employees $50,000 or more for 8 months to do nothing, but you're trying to get more efficient? It is completely inconsistent with what their goal and objective is. This is a purging of the federal government workforce with those who are not loyal to Trump or those who don't want to work for Trump. At least in part it is. So I think both sides are on the board with having a more efficient government. The real issue is how it's getting done, and is it being done legally? Elon Musk may be the boogeyman to the Democrats, but he's going to be the boogeyman to all Americans if this process doesn't work and it's not done legally.
Alex, I have to ask you about the Time magazine cover. Took a provocative stand, putting Elon Musk behind Trump's resolute desk. I mean, this is a huge statement. How is this playing in Trump's inner circle?
Does anyone read Time magazine anymore?
That's exactly what President Trump said.
I used to see it in the supermarket all the time. I haven't seen it in a while. Look, I think that the Democratic talking point that is getting old is that no one elected Elon Musk. You could say that about virtually any person appointed to a large job by any president in the past 200 years. People elected President Trump and J.D. Vance. Those are the only two individuals that we elect as one nation, a president and a vice president. And it was crystal clear during the campaign that President Trump was going to bring Elon Musk in. He told us what he was going to do. Voters voted for him.
Scott,
Yeah,
Trump's,
I don't
go
have
ahead.
an issue with that. I'm sorry. I don't have an issue with that. And he's absolutely right. They did tell them. The problem with Elon Musk is this is fraught with peril because of the major conflicts. You cannot be a federal government employee and then be a $15 billion government contractor and then allow yourself to have access to competitive information that would only be part of a government contractor program or the one who's government employee who's implementing it. You can't have it both ways. And that's a huge issue. And that's the part of what's really being litigated in these federal cases. His role, not so much who he is, but how he's operating, and does he have a competitive advantage, and is he fraught with conflicts? I say yes, and the federal courts are going to say yes too, or have said yes already.
Scott, I'm running out of time, but I have to ask you because I've heard so many Democrats bring this up in the past few days, in the past week. Where is the Democratic opposition? Who do you think is leading the charge here?
Well, there's several leaders, if you will. The congressional and Senate leaders have been protesting with these workers. The DNC has a new chair, but it's not so much about who's leading the charge. All of us can see the degradation that's being brought by this slash and burn approach, and it's just not fundamentally right. It's not democratic, and Americans have to decide as to whether they want to support this or not. They voted for Trump, they own Trump, and this is what you get. But that doesn't make it right, appropriate, fair, doesn't make it equality, and doesn't make it just for all of us.
Alex Zdan, Scott Bolden, I always appreciate talking to both of you. Thank you for your time.